Hello, and welcome to a magical evening of stories and fun. I'm your host, Mistress Jen, and I'm here to tell you 4 not-so-scary stories to get you into the Halloween spirit. Welcome to my magical lair. We have 4 wonderful stories for you today. The first is called We're Off to Find the Witch's House. Are you ready? Here we go. We're off to find the witch's house. Which house? The witch's house. We're off to find the witch's house, but we're not afraid. No, we're not afraid. We're creeping down the witch's street. Which street? The witch's street. We're creeping down the witch's street, but we're not afraid. No, we're not afraid. We're slinking by a blinking owl, a winking owl, a blinking owl. Wave goodbye to the winking owl, watching with one eye. We're skedaddling past a skeleton. This is my friend right here. A skittle, scattle skeleton, a skinny, grinning skeleton, shaking, rattling its bones. We're bolting by Big Frankenstein, the herky-jerky lurching kind, his heavy head held on with twine. Watch out, don't get too close. We're galloping past a ghastly ghost, a mostly mist, ghostly ghost, a flying, floating, twisting ghost, swishing through the dark. We're rambling past a howling wolf, a scowling wolf, a growling wolf, a hairy, scary, glaring wolf prowling in the park. We're scrambling past Count Dracula, a shirking, lurking Dracula with floating cape spectacular and fangs that glow so bright. We're running by a mummy now. I hope we'll make it by somehow. I think I want my mommy now. Here, hold my hand tight. 'Cause we're coming to the witch's house. Which house? The witch's house. We're coming to the witch's house with bats and spider webs. We're knocking on the witch's house. Which door? The witch's door. We're knocking on the witch's door. It opens with a shriek. There she is. She's standing there. She's standing where? She's standing there. There she is. She's standing there. And we all scream, trick or treat. Happy Halloween. Aw, see, she's not so scary. It's like, I'm not so scary, I promise. So that is our first story. The next one is called Beneath the Ghost Moon. Alrighty. Wonder if this one will be scarier. 'Twas the night before Ghost Eve, and high in the sky, the moon was an unblinking solid white eye. The farmyard was quiet, and likewise the house. Asleep in each bed was a small, happy mouse, each dreaming of a dance to a night shining tune, playing under the stars and the Halloween moon. A fancy dress dance with a band that was hot and a lemon dew drink, most decidedly not. The costumes were gorgeous, all fluffed, primped, and pressed, with false nose and face mask for each dancing guest. And out in the garden patch, under moon gleam, the pumpkins all drowsed in a vegetable dream. but creeping from corners and creeping down walls and creeping from out of old dark cellar halls came crimson and green things that gibbered and laughed to steal all the face masks and tear them in half. They ripped up the costumes while all the mice slept, except for one necklace a small crawly kept. Then trampled the noses, and then just for spite, they dropped all the stuff from a very great height. They chortled their victory over the mice and said lots of things, not one of them nice. Now one by one, walking, the mice saw the mess, the torn apart face masks, the ripped fancy dress. They gathered the noses, not one was complete, and everything soiled by the creepy craw's feet. All that was whole in that terrible scene was a black clarinet and a gold tambourine. So one by one, crying, they left the big house. Every brown, every black, every gray or white mouse. It's the end, cried the gray one. We're done, wailed the black. Let us move far away and let's never come back. Now wait, came a small voice. Don't give up so fast. Please hear what I say before any votes cast. Then up on a pumpkin, so she could be seen, climbed a little white mouse with a gold tambourine. Let us take back our house. Let us take back the night. We can't let this crew win without a good fight. But we're small and outnumbered. It's just too much fuss. Don't be daft, said the little white mouse. What we've got is us. So they found rubber bands and made slingshots of wood. They gathered up all the pebbles they could. They fashioned pin swords and made bottle cap shields and shaped cornstalk rammers picked up in the fields. They took all the pull tabs from the soda pop cans and wore those as armor. Then they made their plans. We'll stick them, we'll stock them, we'll make that crew sweat. Then Mouse blew a charge on the black clarinet. They rushed through the darkness with banners held high, and the farmyard hallooed with a great battle cry. The noise was quite wild and quite deafening too. It certainly scared that whole creepy, crawly crew. They fled from their lairs, they dashed from their dens, they stayed not a moment to make their amends. When last seen, the crawlies were headed due west, and that is the side of them I like the best. The white mouse remarked with the turning around when there was her necklace strung on the ground. Please, miss, came a voice with a hint of a whine. I am giving you back what was yours, then was mine. Do you think I could stay in your house, in my lair, and be part of your home, and be part of your care? It was just a small crawly, a miserable creep. He ventured this question, knees down in a heap. Stick him, said the mice cried. The white mouse said, no. He has asked for our friendship. We must let him go. So they left him alone in his dreadful distress, and wearing their armors like Halloween dress, they proceeded to dance to the clarinet's tune and the tambourine beat underneath the ghost moon. But off to one side, with a tattered false nose and a soiled and torn remnants of some mouse's clothes, the smallest of crawlies, a smile on his face, got to listen to music while dancing in place. And when he was able to follow the tune, why, he danced with the white mouse beneath the ghost moon. That's our second story. I hope that you're getting into the Halloween spirit. So the next one are Scared Silly, a Halloween treat. So this one's going to be a silly story. All day long the sky had been crawling with clouds as mean and restless as ghosts on the prowl. There's going to be a storm tonight, Chester predicted, as Mrs. Monroe called us in to dinner, and we'll be all alone in this house. Who knows what might happen? What do you mean? Howie asked. Howie was only a puppy. I didn't want Chester scaring him. So I said, he means we might get sick to our stomachs if we eat too many treats. Howie looked at Chester, and Chester looked at me. Something like that kid, he said. Howie gulped. Nice going, Chester, I muttered over my food dish. You just had to frighten him, didn't you? Well, it is Halloween, Harold. I've heard about Halloween, stammered Howie. That's when the goblins come out to play, and the witches, and the ghosts, and the ghouls. Don't forget the skeletons, said Chester. They'd be hurt to the bone if you left them out. Howie darted from the room, his toenails clicking madly on the linoleum, while Chester chuckled. Very funny, I said. Oh, come on, Harold. Don't be such a party pooper. Being scared is what Halloween is all about. I guess you're right, I said, remembering the harmless scares of Halloween past. I looked around. It seemed like an ordinary enough Halloween. Mr. Monroe was busy carving a jack-o'-lantern. Toby and Pete were fighting because they didn't want to have to go trick-or-treating together. You walk too slow, Pete told his younger brother. You run ahead and try to lose me, Toby said. Boys, said Mrs. Monroe, who was rushing to finish the costume she and Mr. Monroe were wearing to the party that night. Bunnicula was sleeping in his cage. I knew he would wake up once it was dark, and I wondered if he was looking forward to Halloween. After all, since he is a vampire rabbit, at least Chester said so, I imagined Halloween might be a special night for him. I didn't think much about it, though. Eating always makes me drowsy, and it wasn't long before I was sound asleep. By the time I woke, it was dark outside, and the Monroes were gone. The wind was howling, and the windows rattled, and the door, and Howie shook. What a racket, he cried. What's going on? Oh, nothing, Chester said with a yawn. Just some creaking bones. It's the storm, I told Howie, giving Chester a dirty look. Howie jumped up onto the sofa and gazed out the window. Who are they? He asked. Goblins looking for puppies to munch, said Chester. Kids in costumes, I explained. They're trick-or-treating. Look, Howie, Chester is just trying to frighten you. That's the fun of Halloween, being scared, but there's nothing really to be frightened of. There was a gust of wind, and all the lights went out, except maybe the dark, I said in a tiny voice. The three of us huddled by the sofa, looking around at the eerie shadows cast by the jack-o'-lantern's light. From across the room, Bunnicula stared at us. His eyes gleamed, his teeth glistening, his shadow making him seem twice as big as usual. There was something in the way he looked at us that held us spellbound. Tap, tap, tap. There came a knocking at the door. Howie was out of sight before I could say, it's only a tree branch. There's no tree near the front door, Chester pointed out. True, I said. Tap, tap, tap. Trick or treat? I asked. Slowly, the doorknob began to turn. Trick, Chester yelped. We ran behind the big brown velvet armchair. Howie was cowering there already, panting rapidly. Who's at the door? He asked. The wind, I answered. The door flew open. Uncle Harold, Howie said. Yes? Does the wind wear a hat? There, before us, not 10 feet away, stood a witch. "What a night," she said, her voice so rough it seemed full of gravel. She dropped a bag on the floor, rubbing her hands, and the door slammed shut. The witch came towards us, but stopped when she reached the jack-o'-lantern. In its light, we could see her long, crooked nose, the hairy wart on her wrinkled cheeks, and the spider dangling from her hat. "Help!" Howie yelled. "What was that?" snarled the witch, turning her head. "Quiet," Chester said to Howie. "Do you want to end up as a Halloween treat?" The witch's eyes darted all about. Then she shrugged and carried the jack-o'-lantern off to the kitchen. We didn't move. We didn't dare breathe. "What is she doing here?" Chester asked. "Why would she pick our house?" "There's only one reason I can think of." I followed his eyes. "Bunnicula?" "The vampire rabbit and the witch. They're in cahoots, don't you see?" "I thought we lived in Centerville," said Howie. "Cahoots? Cahoots isn't a place," said Chester. "It means they're cooking something up together." We heard the sound of the pots and pans in the kitchen. "Maybe it's fudge," I said hopefully. "And maybe it's the witch's brew," said Chester. "Follow me." We crept across the living room floor and nudged the kitchen door open with our nose. What we saw made us gasp. Burning candles filled the room. Something was bubbling in its huge pot on the stove. "I was right," Chester said. "She's concocting a witch's brew." In a voice that crackled and croaked, the witch sang a strange melody as she stirred the pot. "Spells," Chester mumbled. "Chants," Chester grumbled. "Bubble, bubble, toil and trouble." All of a sudden, the witch stopped singing. She stopped stirring. She lifted her nose in the air and asked, "Now where are those animals?" I never imagined that the three of us could fit behind the sofa at the same time, but no one stopped to measure. "My mother didn't raise me to be an ingredient," Chester said. "We've got to get out of here." The kitchen door opened wide. Light poured into the room. The witch was clicking her tongue, calling for us. Her head turned this way and that, and then she saw something. "Ah, Bunnicula," she said. She lifted the rabbit out of the cage and disappeared with him into the kitchen. "We've got to save him," said Howie. "We've got to save us," Chester said. "We might be next. The only way out is the pet door. We're just going to have to get past her." "Don't worry," I told Howie. "I'll save Bunnicula." Slowly, silently, we made our way towards the kitchen door. We pushed it open and... "Oh, my stars!" cried the witch, throwing her hands and Bunnicula into the air. The bunny landed on my back. The witch laughed. Howie smacked into the table leg. Something fell to the floor with a crash. We almost made it, but just as we reached the back door, it opened, and suddenly, two horrible creatures blocked our way. As fast as we could, we dashed to the front door, and monsters even more horrible than the first stopped us in our tracks. "We're trapped," Chester moaned as the creatures gathered round us. "Doomed, surrounded by hideous Monroes." The lights came on. "Mom!" the skeleton cried. "What a surprise!" "Grandma!" shouted the beast with 3 eyes, 2 of which I recognized as Toby's. "We weren't supposed to come until tomorrow," said the mummy, who sounded a lot like Pete. "I thought I'd arrive early and surprise you," the witch said. "You know Halloween is my favorite holiday." "Your costume is great," said Mr. Monroe. "But what's going on with your voice?" "Oh, I have an awful cold." And to think I traveled here in the storm. And then, just as I got to the house, the power went out. Well, I began to wonder if I wasn't a little crazy to have come at all. I brought Bunnicula into the kitchen to keep me company while I made some hot cider, and the next thing I knew, "Cider," said Toby. "Let's have some." There's nothing like a little hot cider and some donuts to help you get over the jitters. Howie and I were beginning to relax at last and enjoy Halloween, even though Chester wasn't convinced the old lady was who she seemed to be. I know she looks a little like Mr. Monroe's mother under that costume and makeup, he said, and she sounds a little like Mr. Monroe's mother under that scratchy voice, but she could be a witch pretending to be Mr. Monroe's mother, couldn't she? Nonsense, I said. Stop trying to scare us, said Howie. By the way, Mom, Mr. Monroe said just then, how was your flight? A little bumpy, but I still say flying is the only way to travel. Flying? Howie gasped. I was right, Chester cried. I didn't know whether Chester was right or not, but I wasn't taking any chances. Move over, you two, I said. It's going to be a long night. We hid under the couch again. Here we go. All right, so that's our third story. Now I have one last one to help you guys have a great night, and this one's called Harry and the Terrible What's-It. All right. I knew there was something terrible down in the cellar. I just knew, because the cellar was dark and damp and it smelled. Ew. Don't go down there, I told my mother. Why? She asked. There is something terrible down there. I have to go down in the cellar, she said. I need a jar of pickles. She never believes me. I waited and waited and waited at the cellar door. She never came back up. Someone had to do something, so I took a broom and went down the cellar steps. It was very black and gloomy, and it smelled. I know there is something here, I called out. What did you do with my mother? And then I saw it. A double-headed, three-clawed, six-toed, longhorn what's-it. It was hiding behind the furnace. Where is my mother? I asked it. The last time I saw your mother, said the what's-it, she was over by the pickle jars. Runt. I was sure the what's-it was lying. What did you do with her? I shouted, and I gave it a swat with the broom. Wham! That made the what's-it really mad, and it came after me. I swung the broom again. Wham! The what's-it didn't like that at all. It climbed up the washer, and I hit it right where when it was sitting down. I noticed the what's-it was getting smaller, and when I pulled its tail, it got even smaller. Now the what's-it was down to my size. Okay, you better tell me what you did with my mother, I said, or else. Kid, you're crazy, the what's-it answered. One of the heads made a face at me. Just for that, I twisted a nose and the what's-it shrank some more. Why are you getting so small? I asked. Because you aren't afraid of me anymore, said the what's-it. That always happens just when I'm beginning to feel at home in a closet or a cellar. The what's-it looked very sad. The what's-it got smaller and smaller and smaller. Just when it was about the size of a peanut, I called out, try Sheldon Parker's cellar next door. He's afraid of everything. Thanks, I heard it say. Then the what's-it was gone. The what's-it disappeared before it could tell me what it had done to my mother. I looked in the washer, but she was not there. I looked behind the boxes. My mother was not there either. I looked inside the wooden bin. No mother there. I was very worried. Then I found her glasses beside the pickle jar. But what had happened to the rest of her? I was searching for more clues when I discovered the back cellar door was open. I looked outside, and there, in the bright sunlight, was my mother picking flowers. Boy, was I glad to see her. I found your glasses in the cellar, I said. Thank you, Harry, she said, but I thought you were afraid of the cellar. Not anymore, I answered. The terrible what's-it is gone. I chased it away with a broom. Well, she said, I never saw a what's-it down there. She never believes me. I helped her carry the pickles into the kitchen where she gave me some milk and cookies. You know what, Harry, my mother said, I will never worry about a what's-it as long as you are around. Maybe she did believe me. Later, I heard an awful yell coming from the house next door. I'll bet Sheldon looked in the cellar. The end. So that's Harry and the Terrible What's-It. I hope that you enjoyed these stories and are ready for your own Halloween fun. Remember to be safe out there and have lots of fun, and I hope that you'll join us next time at the Taylor Library. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.